Yeah, Avni, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to KRVIA Encounters. Shreya Pate is an architect by training. She holds a Master of Art in Architecture from Royal College of Art, London, 2019, and a Bachelor in Architecture from Bharati Vidyapeeth College of Architecture, Navi Mumbai, 2014. She is a recipient of the Critical and Historical Studies Award granted for her dissertation at the Royal College of Art, 2018. She has previously worked as an architect at design studios in Mumbai, including Studio Mumbai Architects and Nude Studio. She has worked in London as an art director and scenographer on short films and magazine features, including Marie Claire, Italy, and Welcome Trust, London. She continues to practice and work in Mumbai. The talk will present Shreya's work through her experiences and journey towards understanding how various fragments in life come together to form an art that is architecture. Welcome, Shreya, to KRVI Encounters.
Hi, Avni. Thank you so much for the introduction. Um, Hello, everyone attending the event today. This isn't a lecture as such, but mostly uh, my experience and journey through after my graduation and through my master's and up until now. So basically, like a little walkthrough uh, walkthrough of my work. Um, I'd like to start with this one image that I had taken as a part of 18 image series in 2016. So after working in some forms, I had some ideas which I wanted to get through and wanted to experiment a few things. So I was making some installations, experimenting with photography. So this project was part of one of those, one of the different one of the projects, different projects that I was exploring. This wasn't really named anything in particular, but I wanted to bring out the idea of birth and death through these images. And so these are few glimpses of those 18 image series. And what I wanted to um, get out of it, or I was thinking of doing, is to understand my own body as a space and to explore the image of body as a space, basically. And through different through various travels and through these installations, I was thinking of forming my dissertation at RCA. It wasn't intended, this project wasn't intended to be a part of the dissertation, but somehow it became a part of it. My dissertation was titled The Empty Wall, and it was a short, it was sort of a short novel, kind of small chapters with, day-to-day experiences that you understand space through. Because obviously I was part of an architecture program, and we had to build our thesis dissertation around space. So this was somehow, it wasn't directly very spatial, but I was thinking of how I can explore different spaces through my own body and my own experiences. So these are some of the titles of the chapter, called Battle, Rooftop, Hilltop, etc. And the images that I showed you before, those became part of this chapter called A New Dawn. So those images had come from these sketches. There were a lot of sketches that I had done previously before capturing the images. It was part of the study of how how I want this particular image in this particular posture, etc. And it's quite difficult to photograph yourself in when basically I'm not a photographer, but while experimenting with a certain medium, it takes time for a person to adjust to that medium. So it took a little bit of time for me to take my own pictures and get that right image. So this was like a fun time for me as well, also a learning time and understanding how difficult different mediums are. Photography is one of the most difficult mediums, I think, amongst, of course, many others, but it's one of the most difficult mediums. And to photograph yourself, it's very difficult. And this is like, based on time, light. And so this project, I thought maybe I'll just do it for a week, say week or two, but it went on and extended for 3 whole months from March to May. But luckily, I think coincidentally, while I was thinking of capturing the images, the light in the studio was so perfect. It wasn't very harsh. There was a subtle light, but I had to, time frame it accordingly and get image after image, you know, to get the project right. So along with these images, I understood how our body plays very important part of the atmosphere we are in, and the way the way we look at certain aspects of our environment and spaces. So after months of practice and get the posture right, I could start getting to photograph these images. So and it was quite a nice episode for me, so I thought I'll include it in my dissertation. Another chapter that I really want to share with y'all is this chapter called Migratory Bodies. And I was thinking maybe I'll blur my background, but this room actually it was part of this chapter. So if you see these small sketches over here, so this chapter is basically about migration, how we migrate to different spaces and how our body adjusts to these different spaces. And according to our body, the space transforms itself. It's very basic, of course, you all know it, but somehow we keep forgetting the fact that this is a recurring process. And so here is a small sketch of these are sketches of the spaces that I shared with different people that are part of my life. And this image is this sketches with my parents when I was a little bit younger. The one below is this bedroom that I'm sitting in with my sister. This is another sort of room. It was actually like this, very cramped. I used to, while I was working at the studio, we had to share an apartment like this, and another space in London where I was staying in a hostel with 2 other girls. So this kind of study it's quite interesting to understand the elements and the spaces that the posture, the ergonomics, and everything around it, the physicality of space and the physicality that we have, and this sharing of this sharing kind of feeling that you're not just sharing a space with you're not sharing something with just the person, but you're sharing your things with the space, and so on and so forth. It's again a cycle, I feel. So there are many other chapters which I find interesting, but I thought I'll share these with you. this was another. This is the epilogue for the dissertation, which concludes with my travels through Varanasi and how everything actually concludes or maybe begins with sort of idea of you know decay or death or a new birth. So this epilogue just ends, this thesis just ends with that, on that note. It's not really an ending, but I feel like it was another beginning, sort of. And this was during my first year at RCA, and I wasn't really thinking of what I wanted to do in my second year, because it's you can get easily mixed up with ideas and different things. But the reason I'm showing you this thesis is very important. It became very important for me because I didn't realize how my work evolved through these writings and these travels and different experiences. So this sort of formed a brief for my thesis in my second year. So at the start, we had professors had planned a trip for us. So they were going to take us to different places that Corbusier had built. And it was a different exploration completely to see Corbusier's buildings in India. Maybe many of you might have seen them abroad as well. But basically, it was my first time to see Corbusier's buildings in Switzerland and France. And they were extremely, they completely changed my perspective to look at Corbusier, because I always thought of him as, kind of very rustic and brutal. But when you look at those structures in that setting, it just, it doesn't stand out that way, but it completely blends in. It feels like it's just come out from the land somehow, and it's just perfect for it. So that experience completely changed my view of Corbusier and looking at the spaces that he had built. We actually lived in the Monastery La Tourette, and here are some studies that I've done at the cell we had stayed in. So before going for this trip, our professor had, they had asked us that we had to choose either two buildings or two setups that, we could compare as twins. Twins as in, physically maybe they look similar, or, they have a same characteristic, but they are completely two different people. They have two different individualities. So we had to treat our case studies basically as twins. So I after seeing this monastery, I'd completely fallen in love with it. So I'd taken actually two settings inside the monastery, as one as the cell that we had stayed in, and one as the church that is there inside the monastery. The scale of these two things are so completely different. Like, when you enter the church, it's exactly the proportion of the cell, but the scale is extremely massive. And here I just, this is just a little comparison of how this is the cell balcony, and this is the church basically. So this kind of scale and with same proportion sort of intrigued me a lot, and I wanted to study this deeply. This is the picture of La Tourette. And another case study that I found very interesting, another structure of Corbusier, was his cabanon. It's a little cabin that he's built at the seaside in France. very interesting. I couldn't really see it from the inside, but it's a very tiny sort of cabin that Corbusier built just for himself, and has everything in it. It's self-contained. So he used to stay there in the last phase of his life, um, which I thought made a really wonderful uh, case to work on. Another this I hadn't visited. Sorry, but I thought that this kind of house that is not built by an architect but a writer, that is Martin Heidegger. And I found it very interesting because Heidegger had built this Black Forest cabin for himself and his wife, and it's also self-contained. It was built in his own village in Germany. Very interesting with small rooms. When you enter from here, you have the chimney and you have a small kitchen over here with a storeroom and a small space to cleanse yourself and sleeping area, etc. So just a very simple thing, but very interesting. So these were part of my studies for which would get so basically these are the images of Martin Heidegger and his wife inside the cabin, and Heidegger living in this space. Actually, I don't know whether he really lived there or not, but it's said that he used to live there, and he wrote a lot of books, and especially Being and Time over there. But it's quite interesting, even if it's fictional. So after we came back from the trip, we had to sort of put our idea into manifest our idea, put it into practicality. So we had to build a model out of industrial materials, and everybody had the freedom to choose whatever materials they could, but it had to be industrial, like aluminium or steel or whichever, like MS sections, whatever is used as prefabricated or etc. like that. So my idea was to build this little house, which would be a space that is one above the ground and one under the ground. So that was my kind of twin that I was thinking of forming. So this was the model. This was the space that was above, and the space that was. It was a very basic model. Sorry about this. Very basic model, but it just opened up our idea of scale and how much space we wanted to give to which activity, etc. It was a great exercise, actually. And through that, I measured myself and my height and everything. And through that, I actually made a little scale to how I can manipulate or make a grid out of it and further my study through it. So this is the plan of the same model. The model is very preliminary, but this is kind of the idea where this little inspired, I think, from Heidegger's house, but this space of coming in, and then it's divided into four with a small chimney over here, and a kitchen, bedroom, small toilet, and I'm sorry, this is a living room, and then there's a bedroom over here. And it's sort of like this space opens up, and just getting into getting functioning, and small barn outside, and the space underground which I could use as a study space or whatever I feel like. So this wasn't site specific or anything. This was just an exercise for our thoughts to come into reality. But after this, basically every one of us knows that a space cannot, it's always informed by its environment and land. So without a site, I think nothing can be, how do you say, natural. You know, that land, the environment, weather, everything dictates your design. So of course we had to, uh, get a site, and I was traveling through Spain during that time, and it's I feel like I want to share this, but being a student, like an international student somewhere outside, generally there are a lot of people, your professors as well, and people who are teaching, they always feel like you are going to uh, literally take a side from India and then do something, you have a very strong cultural bond, etc. But I feel that, that definitely comes somewhere in your design, it will definitely reflect. But I feel like whenever there's a chance to explore different areas or different sites, I think it's very important to do so, because otherwise we just keep holding back or holding on to our roots too much, and then we sort of lose the opportunity to explore these different areas. So I was traveling in Spain. Anyway, I just wanted to uh, just uh, say something which I really felt. So I was visiting one of my friends in Spain, and then she took me to this very magical place called it's around Costa Brava, but it's a little island kind of thing. It's not really an island, but like a, how do you say, peninsula kind of. So she took me there, and it's called Cap de Creos. It's a very very beautiful space, but there's no there's a very less vegetation over there, just very rocky terrain. But it's very very pretty in its own sense. It has a very different nature to it, and I just really felt like this should be where I maybe build something, or at least try to see how I can inculcate this as my site. So I took this as my site, and this is how the terrain is actually. Um, yeah. So after that, I um, while when you want to um, actually build a space, and the brief wasn't really clear, so I thought, like, how do I analyze these spaces? And I thought maybe I'll just put myself in that situation and just see that I'm the specimen for this house. It wasn't really intentional that I wanted to build a house for myself or something like that, but how do you understand space? Uh, my intention was to understand space, ergonomics, and everything deeply, because when we are building for someone else, um, how do we think what they need? So to understand that, I think we need to understand the psychology of what we need. And it's not about when we are building for someone else, uh, we need to understand what dictates that design. So to understand that, I really wanted to do this exercise. So in my house in London, I just documented myself. This is a small film. Maybe I can share it with you all. It's on Vimeo as well. It's a small film, just documenting, my daily routine from morning till night. I'm sorry. Yeah. Um, and through these activities, understanding the how do you say, the space that we need. So I'm sitting here, how much space do I need? Very basic things, but to understand how do I design those spaces. this is a small film called Home, and through these I made different sketches to understand ergonomics of how do how much space do I need, how much space does my body need, maybe this much. Is this much comfortable? Is that much comfortable? So, just and outdoor spaces, indoor spaces, spaces that surround us. Environment is also important. I think it's the most important part of our build. The structures that are set in the environment, they come later on, but the environment is already there. So how do they share that space together uh, without we disturbing the environment? So these just little studies, and along with that and with the scale that I'd shown you, along with my height, and I made a little small scale of proportions of just 1/3, 2/3, and all those things. So according to that, I made a little modular furniture. And this box that you this is also a film, and this space is like 4 meters by 4 meters. And I thought that this is a nice space to understand how much space I need for a particular activity. So these modular furnitures were like 210 by 210, a small one, and 420 height. So I just like 1680 is my height. So I just like kept on dividing it twice, 1/3, and then made these modular kind of pieces to just understand, how much space do I need. It's just an exercise. I think it's really nice to analyze yourself. I really found it very interesting, and I learned a lot of things from, things that I really did not know about myself or know about space, really. So, yeah, this is a really long film actually, because this isn't really for anybody to watch or anything. But anyway, I've uploaded it as well online. But this was for me to analyze how much time I'm spending in one space, like a real time thing. Through that, these were some scale plaster models that I'd made. So basically, when you are sitting and you want to take a cup from here or whatever from the cabinet, or you want to take a book from, so how much space do you need? So maybe it looks a little silly that you scrutinize so much, but it's very important, I think, to understand how much space we really need, because looking at, it's not about luxury or anything, or putting ourselves into uncomfortable spaces. But I think it's important to understand how much space we are really comfortable in, and to understand that I think these are really, these plaster models are like negative spaces basically. So these and through that I had made like these positive kind of spaces. So this is like these are like rooms, and these are openings. There are a lot of other things as well. And so space is one thing, but there's light. There are many other factors that form an ideal space for somebody, of course. So these are again studies, and through that, the design development started basically. So how a shower cubicle could be, or a bench, or a little stool over here, or a bathtub. How much angle do I need to recline? A little bit in detail maybe, or a little hook, whether I want a hook, or whether I want something over here to keep my shower soap or bottle, etc., or a towel hanger or cloth hanger. Like all these things mattered a lot. I think for me mattered a lot, and through that came the idea of spaces: sitting, reading, writing, bathing. So this is a little bit something fun. And also, like, yeah, During my visit in Spain, I had been to Miro Museum, Juan Miro Foundation, and these there were three paintings which were, absolutely brilliant paintings that I'd seen on screen, and I'll show you another image later. I've seen them on screen, but the impact that you have when you actually see them, it's just absolutely magical. It's called Blue 123. It's a series of three paintings made by Juan Miro. He's a Spanish painter. In case you want to know more about him, you can read the name. But absolutely brilliant, Catalan painter actually. And he had made these three paintings where I found these lines and these elements just so absolutely stunning. These balance out so well. So this is another painting, and this one. So these, somehow I thought that this composition of this composition in these paintings is just, they're absolutely perfectly balanced. Like there are just three elements in it, but how do you balance it? How do you get this space? This empty space. How do you get meaning to this empty space? How do you bring meaning to this empty space? So I think studying not just these three paintings really intrigued me, and of course, like they are that big, huge in scale. And when you actually sit and look at them, they're absolutely brilliant. It makes a completely different impact on you. So it just makes you wonder. I felt like I was seeing something from above, something dividing two spaces, and there are different elements in it. And it sort of found a study for me. And these also I studied Miro's like different other paintings, and I sort of started sketching and studying these lines, um, which I feel are very important to understand composition in your design, because design is not just about uh, spatiality, it's also about how you divide that space, how much empty space do you keep, and how much weightage are you giving to a certain element. Where do you put that element? Of course there's functionality is the most important thing that dictates the form. But then how are you going to place your different elements, like your bath or your kitchen or all those things? Definitely it's according to light and environment and all those things, they factorize in. But I think aesthetically as well, it's not just aesthetic, but I think this kind of composition gives great value to the design, and I felt like I had to bring in this value to my work. So these are like very preliminary sketches, and this is a small model that I thought, uh, how I can proceed with my work with a small. This is a cloth hanger. This is just a symbol. This is just a symbol. I wanted to make a tall structure over here. The house underground and the house above. So I thought maybe it's a summer house and a winter house. So something like that. And then I tried to sketch moments of, stopped planning things, but started to capture, like how would this bench look, or when I'm sitting here, how would this space look if I'm sitting here, whether I would see a clothing line and I see clothes over there, something like that, whether I'll see birds on the clothing line, like just capturing moments in my head and then just like putting it on paper to understand, just to proceed further basically. So these are like another three moments. Something similar. Cities, a space going below, and some skylights. Again, the same thing. Um, And proceeding further, these are four series of four drawings. I won't show all of them to you, but I feel like these are the two most important drawings that formed uh, my entire thesis, and also the show that I had recently. This image is something that gave me all the elements that I was imagining. Um, like a very basic geometry, like a triangle, sphere, cube, but and set in that topography, rocky terrain, and a platform. Um, this is another image. So this is the plan for the house basically, and this is the space that goes below underground. This is the summer house. Actually, I just wanted this house not to be integrated into like one house, but having like street kind of uh, you know when it's summer in this area in Spain. So it's absolutely harsh, very harsh light that comes in. So when I'm using this entire platform as a summer house, and then how do I get a comfortable space when I'm sleeping or when I'm in the kitchen and I'm not getting harsh light, uh, even though I'm outdoors. Sometimes maybe during the afternoons. So I wanted to create this street kind of. This is basically a street. This is on a one space, this is second space, and third like units. And this is another shower cubicle, a kitchen, and a storage space, a small bedroom, and this is a study. So according to my needs and according to how much space I really require for a particular activity, I design these spaces. And uh, these are kind of different spaces, like the clothing line, a small well, a seating. There was a swing, and a bench, and a similar house exactly below this. So this is basically the bench and the seating. These are just different iterations of. This is the complete image of uh, the the house, which I like to call the living landscape. Um, these have all these elements that I don't know whether I would design this in the same way now, because the platform, this kind of platform had given a different dynamic to these elements. But sometimes I think maybe what if the platform wasn't there at all, and these were just placed in that rocky terrain. But I think the reason that I had built this kind of platform was for the space below and the space above, and I just wanted to place it in this terrain according to, of course, it was built according to the terrain, but I think this was an image in my mind when we look at this kind of thing, like on a cliff, like cliffhanger. It seems like a utopian idea to me, but when you are in an academy and just experimenting, I think that's the best part, where you can imagine a lot of things and you can actually, you can interpret it. So this was another module that I made for the degree show. I think it just keeps on moving. It just kept on moving, one thing after another, just ahead and ahead and ahead. Because I thought that it wasn't really finished. I think this project sort of ended here like during my college. But I really felt like these spaces weren't really explored to its maximum, uh, and it was still incomplete somehow, because when there's when the space is such huge, I think when you are working with a tiny model, it still remains as kind of an unexplored space. Whether you feel like whether it's really can it really be built, or whether what you're thinking is is it, how do you say it, in real time, how does it look basically. So when I came back to uh, Mumbai, uh, after spending these years in London and working on this project, honestly, I never thought that my project would take this trajectory and become like this. Because I've always liked spaces which are, you know, full of uh, greenery around and very tropical kind of. And this project came out completely different. And I think it was very important and very uh, good that it came out this way. Because this, I feel, is pure space. There is environment in it, but still there's a purity. There's some kind of purity in it. There's no intervention. There's a very minimal intervention from the environment. These are the images. Yeah, so when I came back from London, I got an opportunity to that I could showcase my work at a gallery. Mirchandani and Steinruecke, they were thinking that they'd give me a solo show for this entire project. It's not really, how do you say it? I'm not getting that word, but it's not usual. Sorry, it's not usual that something like this could be shown at a gallery. I'm not talking about the scale, but this kind of project or a thesis work could be taken so seriously, because I was still thinking of getting further and further with this project, because it wasn't yet finished for me. So when the gallery gave me the show, I was fabricating these pieces, and this piece in the middle is the first piece that I fabricated. It's just tiny piece. It's 8 inch in diameter, and I thought that how do I scale up the pieces? Basically, just wanted to scale up the pieces and see what happens. So, and I had the opportunity to do it. Otherwise, I maybe wouldn't, have. Um, uh, and these are 1:4. The scale is 1:4, and this actual piece is like this big, maybe 1 meter, a little bit less than 1 meter. And this was, so that's the reason I started calling these small pieces fragments, because I started taking out these activities from that house, like disconnecting them and looking at them as an individual object or individual activity. So this is a bathtub, and then a seating, like a rocking chair, and then a bench again. And these are all made of MDF, and just a grid. I was thinking how to fabricate them, like very preliminary experiment. And I feel like making, yeah. And these were the drawings that I thought maybe translated to the same material. This is MS, and to translate the drawings that we see, those dissertation, like the thesis drawings, I thought maybe I wanted to translate it to a medium which is not, I wasn't familiar with this, but I'm pretty much familiar with it now. Still have to experiment a lot, but it's very interesting how this is the actual color of the plate, This is a drawing made on 2 mm MS plate, and when you like just basic tape drawings, and then you treat this exposed surface with acid, and this is what you get. It's very interesting process, um, but it's interesting because you don't know what's going to happen, what texture you're going to get, or what's going to happen later. Because sometimes when there's too much process on it, it starts rusting very quickly. And sometimes when you have a very light sort of patina on it, it remains. So it depends on time and proportion and everything. But it's very, very interesting process, and I really enjoyed it. These drawings, and I feel like making is a part of um, making is a part of our process, and how we actually come in contact with these things. The reason I wanted to scale these objects, or just didn't wanted to look at it on plan or in 2D, is because while you are actually making things, to understand a lot of things, and a lot of things changed in these as well, these aspects. It did not just translate, but it translated, and the medium really dictated. These small pieces are made just with cement. It's cast in cement, and it's a very even this I really enjoyed working on these fragments. These are sort of scaling it bigger to 1:1 scale, and the reason you can't of course you have to just imagine, so it's a very different scale. It's a huge sized house, of course, but when you want to scale it, and when you're going to put it in a gallery, how much and what are you going to scale? That's the question. So those I had to pick up different pieces and fragments and think that this can be scaled, this is possible, and like the different challenges that we face while actually fabricating things. So these are like molds, and just process of casting and the drawing drawings.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But, I just wanted to remind that we're running out of time.
Oh, yeah. I'm just, I think 2 or 3 slides away.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll just, run through, and some of the fabrication that went on in the gallery space, and something. So these are the final pieces that we put in the gallery. This was the water and the 4 drawings, and these are the pieces that I plucked out from the house. The stair that goes to the underground space, and the shower cubicle, a chimney, etc. So the scaled up piece, and a swing. And I think I mentioned before, somewhere in between, that while I think while picking up the side, that we tend to sometimes just cling on to the roots, but sometimes it always comes out. I think when I look at the swing, someone in the gallery told me that it reminds them of the banyan tree, roots that come out, and as a child they used to play. So I think I have done that as well, and somehow subconsciously it reflects in your design. And I think this is the last slide. It just ends with the hand. Yeah, I think.
Thank you, Shreya,
Yeah.
for that presentation. I would like to invite Ankush for today's discussion.
Thanks, Avni, and thanks, Shreya, for that lovely talk. It was quite thought provoking in that I mean, you could almost really think about your own life, your own professional or personal life as just being a net sum of a lot of these moments, like you said, right? Like all of these influences that have triggered you. I'm wondering, as an architect or as an urban professional, for instance, do you think it is actually possible for us to ever detach ourselves from these triggers, from these kind of influences, and ever truly be objective, or do you think that's just an I mean, that's
I think there's one can try, I mean, I'm not saying that being subjective is not right. Of course, it's an artist's expression, and one a person is free to work on whatever subjects they feel like or whatever expression. But I think inherent nature of human being is in itself. I think it's objective. You know, we see a lot of things around us, but I think what is the true essence of our life? I think that is what needs to reflect in our work. That is what my how do you say um, that is what I will always keep trying to do in my work. I don't know if it will come or not, if it will reflect or not, but that is what I would really intend to do because it I think inherently inbuilt in our nature. If we are not going away and if we are not being artificial or anything, I think that is what should come out, and that is what should dictate me. I think.
right. And do you think that when artists or architects actually sit down to maybe design a project, the sheer concreteness of the act, the permanence of the act, do you think that kind of ties us down to that the kind of homage that we're trying to create, or the kind of I mean, do you feel that there is some sort of allegiance that we start to form with our influences? Or do you think that we can actually absolutely disconnect as well? Should we disconnect at all, in fact?
No, I don't think. I don't think we should disconnect because then again we are going against what comes into what what is naturally coming to us. I think if there are influences coming, one thing I've realized with this project is nothing is original. Whenever I keep looking back at these images or whenever I keep looking back at an object, I always see something in it because I've always seen something and then it's reflected in my work. And that will always keep going on and on. It's like a cycle, basically. See, I think you know, all these laws come from nature. Mathematics comes from nature, and that is what is dictating everything. So nothing can be original, really. You know, everything is going to be related to nature. All I think I'm doing, or all we should do, is explore all these laws and through our medium, that is architecture or whatever, whatever our medium is. And because I feel like architecture is such an ancient art that since is man has come into existence, architecture has been there. Man came and shelter came along with it. So it's that primitive. So we cannot really dictate form, or we cannot really, something or other is going to influence us. Our surrounding is going to influence us. Something that we see or something that we'd already seen but we've forgotten. It's always in our subconscious. That it keeps coming, and I think it's really good because what will happen is that will form an individuality, what we call original. That is what we collect from. I will collect something, Avni will collect something, you will collect something, and then we will bring that into our work. And we have seen three different things, or maybe we've seen similar things, but we bring that into our work, and that makes it original. So I don't think we need to stop getting uh, inspired, or stop that we are getting influenced, etc. But I think we should inculcate it naturally. If it's coming, I think it's still nice. That's what I think.
Right. A lot of the sort of and fantastic drawings that you had in your presentation, a lot of them did come from these moments, right? They were maybe moments that moved you. Maybe it was something that meant something else to you. I mean, they were quite momentous in that sense. But have there also been influences that have come from the really mundane things in life, or the banal parts of life? Have there been influences in your work that come from there, which you may not even be able to draw out as a single frame or as a single composition? Are there instances like that?
You mean like domesticity, right?
Perhaps
I think,
domestic.
of course, because all these spaces are domestic. I mean, what are we doing? Like, spaces are built along with these activities. Like, you're cooking in the kitchen, you're cutting vegetables, or you're filling water, or you're watering your plants. I think these activities are so important. Like what you're saying, these we call them mundane and banal, but they have a very different nature to it. I think when we study them, you know we just keep, when we are doing that activity, we just forget and we take it for granted. But when we as architecture students, when we are studying it, I think we need to look at it in a very different way. It's not boring, it has a quality to it. And it has a quality because you are not doing it, sometimes you're not doing it because you really love it, sometimes you're doing it because you have to. It's like instinct, you go and brush your teeth. It's instinct. It just happens. And then why is it so? And we build spaces around this. So I think mundane and banal activities, or what you're saying, ideas, are very important. Yes, for sure. I think they're preliminary.
Well, thanks. Thank you so much, Shreya. That was a lovely conversation as well, I think. Avni, are there questions that you might want to take up?
There is no chat option over here, but if anybody has any questions, they can raise their hands and you can speak.
Please feel free to unmute and ask in case the chat option is not showing up. Anything else, Shreya, that you would like to add? Because I don't think we have any questions.
Okay. Well, I don't know if Avni, maybe you have a question. But well, not really, because the thing is that this entire thing, that it wasn't a talk or anything, it was just a walkthrough. And I just wanted to share with the students whatever I felt, because during my bachelor's, there were very few opportunities for us to understand uh, this kind of or to understand space. It was very, I felt it was very generic kind of teaching, or thoughts were very generic, and it was going in a very different trajectory. So this was my uh, my attempt to, for myself, to understand ergonomics, to understand. So for me, I felt like this was my school. I just went back again to this to the first day of my architecture school, and I started everything all over again. But it was my journey and my path. I thought that this is how maybe I'll just experiment with any medium that I feel because I really feel like architecture is not just it's not just about space or about building. I feel like it's so many different aspects coming together, and like music, film, advertising, design, and like so many things come together, and that's what makes really good architecture. That's what I feel, and so many things keeps dictating it. So what I felt during the 10 years since I've been in architecture, what I've felt is, there are many people who constantly are our influences, or we get inspired by them, looking at like, massive structures and big buildings. And but the thing is that do we really need them, or do they really have to be like this? Um, or how do building really how does the building really want to be? We never ask this question. We just keep on putting our our language into it, or we keep on saying that no, this has to be like this because I really like it. But it's not about me, or it's not about the I in us. I think it is what that brief, or whatever is going to dictate that building. That is what I feel. That should be the language of the building. Material. The thing that the reality actually is that the reason I used cement was actually it was cheaply available over here for my show. I wanted to use lime because the materials that I thought of during the thesis was lime, because lime was very abundant. It's quite abundant in Barcelona and places around. You can easily build structures around it. But when I came here, the process of lime is very difficult and it's very time consuming. You have to be in it. And industrial materials, I'm not saying that they're cheap or in that way, but of course they're easily available. So I just needed plasticity, to mold my things, and I think cement was a great option for me. I felt so. It's not necessary that I'm going to stick with concrete all the time. So if I go to some other place and if I have to do another object or another building, I think that environment is going to dictate my work. That is what I will always that's what I feel like should be.
Thank you so much, Shreya, for that.
Thanks, Shreya. Thank you for your time, and
Thank
thank
you,
you
Mom.
for
Thanks a lot for calling me on this
yeah.
lecture.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Abhi.